Peripheral Labs brings spatial intelligence to media, starting with live sports. Now I'm here with Kelvin, who's the co-founder and CEO. Great to be here, Kelvin.
Appreciate you having me, Karam. And yeah, super excited to be working with Inovia as we bring the next era of spatial intelligence to the masses.
Now, you and Mustafa, your co-founder, have spent years building autonomous driving systems at places like AutoDrive and Tesla. How did you end up looking at sports, and how is this a bigger problem to solve?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Mustafa and I have actually been working together for years now, even before our stuff at the AutoDrive team at the University of Toronto. We actually first met while working on autonomous race cars with the University of Toronto Formula Racing team. It was around then that we realized we were both working on similar problems around autonomous vehicles. I was a little bit more on the applied side of, design teams, on the electrical side, how do we get to good data, while he was more focused on the research side of, once you have the data, can you do and what kind of models can you build off of it? It was really around the time when he was doing his research on synthetic data generation. So how self-driving cars can use the sensors on the car itself to generate a photorealistic 3D environment of the world around it to do synthetic data gen. That's when we started having the seeds for Peripheral, because basically I was seeing his photorealistic 3D outputs from San Francisco of the Ferry building, for example. And my first thought was it would be so cool to watch sports like this. Then we started looking into it. We found out that this idea of a 3D reconstruction for sports is something that broadcasters, teams, leagues, they've been trying this for years now. It's called volumetric video, but there was always three problems with it, right? Either the quality wasn't high enough, latency was too long, or needed way too many sensors to be scalable. We now think that with the technology that we have from the world of self-driving, and especially the vision systems that you see on these autonomous robotics, we can now apply that technology to live sports and solve the problem from a brand new perspective.
And why is that approach so different, and why can't existing players in the space, copy that strategy?
I think for the background that we have in autonomous vehicles, especially in the world of self-driving cars, the vision systems that are built there are state-of-the-art, right? They're on the 1% of the 1% in terms of how complex and advanced the models are and how quickly the research field moves. Now, I think the difference between how we're approaching the problem and how the problem has been solved in the past is now you have all of these brand new technologies, things like neural rendering, things like massive transformer models, right? You're really getting to the bitter lesson of more data, more compute, better models, this new paradigm of computer vision. And for a lot of the players in the field, that's not the paradigm they're used to. As a result, because of our backgrounds and because of the experience we already bring from the world of self-driving, we're able to leapfrog ahead of a lot of the tech that's currently out there for sports. And I think the results themselves kind of speak for themselves. From you show the results to people who are in industry, and you're blowing their minds of, when past competitors have tried volumetric video, they spent billions of dollars developing up to level. And within, just a few short years and a little bit of money, we've been able to match, if not exceed, the quality that they're able to get out of their models. So I think it really comes back to our experience from the world of robotics and machine learning that allow us to leapfrog ahead.
Well, one really interesting thing we talked about during the fundraise was your differentiation in terms of reconstruction versus generative AI. What's that distinction actually mean once this data gets used, especially for something like an officiating use case?
It's a great question. So right now, there's a lot of AI models that are focused on generation, right? So given some noise, given some text input, you generate brand new strings of data. It's how LLMs work. It's generating brand new words on top of, the input that you give it. You see this a lot in vision as well. So for example, any of your diffusion-based models, they're generative, right? You basically take some noise, you give it a prompt, and then it generates out either full 3D scenes or it generates images. But you can imagine for a sports use case, especially when we're talking about objective things like officiating calls, foot on the line, goaltending, last touch, it becomes so important that you're actually measuring reality rather than generating reality. So the way that we've built our models is it's purely informed by the physical pixels and the sensor inputs that our sensors are able to see of the game itself. And as a result, you don't run into these issues where, your model hallucinates and thinks that the foot was on the line for a 3-pointer, misclassifies it as a 2, 2. Whereas if you see it in the actual pixel space, you can align all these pixels in 3D space and actually get the objective call of what's happened. So especially in something like sports, especially when we're talking about things like officiating, it becomes so important that we're getting the actual call correct and not using something like diffusion for it.
Well, look, like we were completely blown away when we got to come visit you folks at the office and kind of see this all playing out in real time. And, combination of the team, technology, and market potential here were really compelling. You obviously had the chance to, raise capital from a variety of parties. I'm curious, from your perspective, like what made the Inovia relationship really be the one that kind of got to the top of your list?
I think there's a couple of different factors when it comes to why we ended up, coming to Inovia here. The first thing that I would point to is we're a Canadian company, first and foremost. So we actually started off in San Francisco originally, but we made the decision to reincorporate and re-headquarter back in Toronto. A lot of us are engineers from the University of Toronto, specifically from the Robotics Institute at U of T. And for us, we recognize that there is a massive, massive group of talent here in Canada that wants to stay in Canada, but doesn't have the opportunity to work on, super exciting, cutting edge models like they can now here at Peripheral. So when we decided to switch back from a San Francisco headquartered company to a Toronto headquartered company, we wanted to find the best Canadian investors to work with. And at that top of the list was definitely Inovia. It's funny, there's actually, when I was doing my master's at the University of Toronto, I used to work at the Toronto Robotics and AI lab. And in the lab there, we had our self-driving car parked, and right next to it, we had a bunch of ClearPath Huskies, right? So obviously I was very familiar with ClearPath as a company before, very much one of the best robotics companies out here in Canada. And when I found out that Inovia was one of the lead investors in their rounds, it really clicked to me that, Inovia is on the pulse when it comes to the robotic side of things, on understanding what is next when it comes to cutting edge tech. But what I like even more about that is Inovia not only is focused on, AI and robotics, but you guys also have a media arm, right? Like if you look at Take-Two, for example, you guys have the experience of all these different sectors and how technology can be applied to revolutionize a bunch of different things. And for us, where we're trying to build Peripheral as a company, we're not only focused on what we're doing here in sports, but we're also thinking about the broader applications of spatial intelligence, not only on, the media side, but also potentially on the robotics side, from a surveying side. There's a lot of different applications now that you actually have models that can understand the 3D world. And for us, it was a no-brainer. If you combine Canadian, the breadth of experience you guys have, Inovia made the most amount of sense for partnering up on this round.
Well, look, the more fun part of this conversation is, what do you look like in 5 years if that kind of robotics vision plays out? Like we've always talked about the fact, sports and media is the wedge, but, your vision extends way beyond that. Can you give us a little bit of a taste of where things are going there?
For sure. So we've been in the robotics industry for a couple of years now, especially on the self-driving car side. And our fundamental thesis here is simple. It's that models today don't actually understand the full 3D world. It's really good at understanding 2D patterns. But one of the reasons why spatial intelligence and robotics doesn't really, or data-driven robotics, applied AI doesn't really exist at a grander scale right now is because of a lack of training data. We're not training our models using 3D data, and as a result, the models don't actually understand the 3D world. So our focus right now is how can we collect the best 3D data possible so that we can train models for robots, for surveying, for anything to get 3D spatial understanding of the world. You can imagine basically anything in the future that requires 3D understanding. So whether it be sidewalk robotics, whether it be humanoids, whether it be self-driving cars, self-flying planes, anything that needs to interact with the 3D world is now running on Peripheral's models, because we will be the ones that will be the first to crack spatial intelligence and actually give these AI models a 3D understanding of the world around it. And the reason why we're able to do that is because we're first focused on how do we measure reality as good as possible. That's kind of our focus today. That's why we're starting in sports on deploying our models from the measurement side. And as we continue to scale, I'm confident that we'll be able to take over the render, robotics, as well as the spatial intelligence scene with the models that we're able to build.
That's incredible. On behalf of Inovia, we're tremendously excited to be working with you and your team on executing that vision, and looking forward to kind of taking that path with you over the next few years. Thanks a lot.
Well, appreciate it. Super excited to show you what we can build over the next couple of years.
Sounds good. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, guys, for taking the time. Talk to you soon.
Bye.